Andrew, how you going?
I'm well, thanks very much. How are you?
You're a busy, very good, mate. You're a busy man. You're one of the world's leading neuropsychologists. Does that interfere with the rest of your life? Like, you got a family.
Yeah, it's interesting to try and have that work-life balance. I'm switched on 24/7, always looking to continue to be working and doing things to progress things, and also support other people in their careers in terms of the work that I do. So it is a challenge, and I'm sure my wife would like me to be a bit more balanced, but try and get involved in a lot of the kids' activities in terms of helping with the sports that they get involved in and things as well.
I suppose with what you do, it's really a seven day a week cycle, isn't it? Because sports played on the weekend, and then through the week, obviously you digesting what happened and what you have to do. Is it hard, especially on the weekend, like you've got, this weekend off, is it hard to sort of not take a look and see what's going on?
Oh yeah, I'm always watching and supporting and seeing everything that's going on in terms of sports, and obviously it's my passion and I've loved it all my life and followed along a number of different teams, and you've got one of the teams on your shirt there, they're Boston Celtics.
You've got that the old school Boston Celtics.
Yeah. Out of season at the moment, but that's all good. We won't talk about how they ended up going this year.
Man, they did so well obviously the year before. It's amazing how one player's injury can just topple a team. And I suppose that's a psych issue as well, when you think of it.
Yeah, it's hard to go back to back, as you know, and that's why the dynasties, particularly what the Panthers have done over the last few years in the National Rugby League, is just phenomenal. And to be able to bring yourself up to compete at that level when everybody's trying to knock off the champion is really, really hard. So
I've got a theory on the going back to backs. I think is the hardest thing, because I think once you go back to back, there's that added motivation in the mindset of three. A triple seems a bit sexier than the double, but it's trying to get the double. I think it's easy. Personally, I think it'd be easy for a team or even an individual to win something the third time than the second time.
Yeah, it's always a challenge, no matter what you're doing, to be the team that everybody wants to beat every time. So you're kind of playing them at their best the following season, and then to back it up for a third season, you're doing it once again. But it does become something where teams can be intimidated by that. And if we have a look at dynasties over the years, in terms of Chicago Bulls did well, LA have done well in the basketball, and then you look at even the New England Patriots and what Tom Brady did is just amazing as well. And then more locally here in terms of what the Panthers have done, and I guess are still continuing to do, given that they are going for a 5-peat potentially this year.
Yeah.
They're starting to get things back on track again.
I suppose it's about keeping your best players together. What organisations do you represent or currently work for? Because it's your business card would be overflowing.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that I have an opportunity to collaborate with and work with, but my number one appointment is with the University of Sydney, which is a fantastic organisation, and it's I guess the analogy would be to say signing for somebody like Barcelona. In terms of if you're a footballer and you want to play at a top club, you're looking at Real Madrid, you're looking at Barcelona, PSG at the moment. Being able to work for an organisation like the University of Sydney is just phenomenal. They're top-ranked university across a number of different domains in terms of academics and graduate contributions to their careers and things like that. So that's the institute that I am affiliated with. And then in terms of other people that I have an opportunity to collaborate with and work with is a number of different sporting organisations in terms of conducting research and working with policy development. So World Rugby, Rugby Australia, the National Rugby League, and the AFL as well.
No soccer?
It's the sport that I love the most, but I haven't had an opportunity to do anything with the governing bodies. But there's lots of people that I collaborate with that work in that field. So yeah, it's interesting. So
the other week you were working at the Wallabies game. Mm-hmm. Like, tell us what that involves, like a day or the afternoon spent doing that.
Yeah, so there's a number of different roles on match day where we have medical coverage in terms of looking after injuries, so not only concussion, but a number of other areas. So one of the things that I had an opportunity to do and do at those test matches on some occasions as well is to be an extra set of eyes for the medical staff and the team to see if there's any incidents that we would suspect may have been a concussion, so that we're identifying that and removing the player from play and going in medical evaluation. So both teams have a team doctor, and then we have a match day doctor who's independent. And then on top of that, you have a number of other different staff members that are looking after different roles and different aspects of injuries. Always have a medical care community that's part of that in terms of looking after more serious injuries like neck injuries and really severe brain injuries.
Well, there actually was a neck injury in this game.
Yeah.
So I think we...
Been sidelined ahead of the British and Irish Lions.
Excuse the AI voiceover.
On Tuesday on an unspecified
You never
injury
know, Dave.
sustained in the 21-18 comeback win over Fiji. Rugby Australia issued a statement confirming Lolesio has had successful surgery today. The playmaker's head hit the ground with force on Sunday during the second half against Fiji in Newcastle. He was carried from the field and taken to hospital. He was discharged later Sunday, then readmitted to another hospital after a medical follow-up. Wallabies coach Joe Schmidt said...
So just with that, so how involved are you with that? Because again, it's a neck injury, but...
Yeah. So for me personally, on the day, I wasn't involved in that at all, but the immediate care team certainly were. And if anybody that saw the game, you can see that there were a number of doctors and support staff who were involved in making sure that his neck was stabilised and that everything was okay and that he was removed from play and taken to hospital, transferred to hospital to make sure he got looked after. So it was all very top class. The team medical support staff as well as the matchday medical support staff all work in tandem. So we're kind of a team outside of the two teams that are competing against each other.
So if it was more of a head injury, what would then be the procedure?
Yeah, so very similar. So either the match day doctor or the physio for the team would be going on there and assessing the player immediately, just checking how their orientation is and whether they have potentially sustained a concussion. So you don't need to make a diagnosis on the field. You just, if you suspect that there has been an injury that's occurred, then they are removed from play and evaluated more formally over a 15-minute period, which is referred to as the head injury assessment. So then they conduct a number of different cognitive and other assessments to check how they're going, reporting of symptoms, etc. And then there's an evaluation on whether they're fit to return to play or whether they suspect that a concussion may have occurred. Again, they don't need to make a diagnosis at the time. If they just suspect it, then the player's removed from play permanently for the rest of the game.
So just say in a few days' time, sometimes it could take a few days before a player shows some signs or symptoms. Do they get hold of you, give you a call, Andrew, there's something, and then you step in as well?
Yeah, potentially. So a lot of the cases that I get referred to are more complex cases. So those that have a history of concussion, those that are taking a little bit longer to recover than what we would consider to be normal, those that have complex presentation of symptoms, and a lot of the people who I have an opportunity to see are ones that have ongoing memory problems or processing speed problems, so things with their thinking skills. So as a neuropsychologist, that's my area of expertise, is assessing and evaluating their cognitive abilities, and it would be those with cognitive difficulties that would typically be referred to me.
Yes, I tell you what, it's a wonder there wasn't more injuries. I mean, those Fijians are enormous.
Yeah, they are. They're huge.
So I suppose you would have had like a ringside seat to this, and I suppose it's a day where nothing happens. It's like happy days.
Yeah, it's always good when they get through the game without any injuries. So it's a bit of a relief sometimes. But yeah, they, as you say, they're big when they tower over me when I'm standing next to them, and they're just amazing athletes and have really trained hard to get to the position that they're in. And for Fiji, as an example of a nation that doesn't have a huge population, but they punch well above their weight in terms of how competitive they are, particularly at the sevens level. They've done exceptionally well in men's sevens, Commonwealth Games, gold medal, and consistently doing really well.
Just then staying with obviously the organisations you're working with, obviously with Rugby Australia, just say, do you get inundated sometimes on a Monday where there's several head knocks, from different codes? I mean, how do you, I suppose you've got a team?
Yeah, so the whole process in terms of everything that I get involved in is it's really well structured. So at Rugby Australia, we have a blue card system that's been introduced a number of years ago now. We're into its 7th year. And the Chief Medical Officer, Dr Warren McDonald, has worked really hard in terms of making it a national program where any player that's suspected of having a concussion at the community level, the referee has the ability to issue a blue card, which is signifying that the player is being removed from play for a suspected concussion. We've collected all of the data in terms of them identifying that on game day and then making sure that they follow up through their medical practitioner, so usually GP, making sure that they're returning to play when they've had a full medical clearance. Yep. So that comes through on Monday and is screened by Rugby Australia. If people are concerned about the blue card being issued that's not quite what they thought it should be, then we go through it and evaluate it in terms of whether
Does that happen often?
Revoke. Yeah, there's a few. Not a lot of them come through to Warren and myself because they get screened out. We have a process of them needing to demonstrate pretty significant evidence that it wasn't a suspected concussion. So yeah, we do a little bit of that. And then when I was running the program that we look at prospectively, looking at video of head injury assessments in the National Rugby League, on Mondays I was going through and coding lots and lots of videos of every HIA that occurred. We finished up that program at the end of 2023 and we're now cleaning all that database and getting ready to publish some findings in the medical literature.
So when you get these reports, do you actually have to see the players, or is it just reports that you oversee, send back?
Yeah, not always. So I guess to separate the two roles that I have, one of them is as a researcher, so not involved in clinical care whatsoever, just collecting data to have a look at how we can inform with evidence how policies may be improved and improving the health and safety of the participants. And then the secondary hat that I wear is as a clinician. And so if there are cases, usually the more complex cases or those that have cognitive difficulties, as I mentioned just before, they're the ones that tend to be referred through for further assessment. And ultimately, what I'm doing is to try and help provide further evidence to the club doctors who ultimately make the decision on their suitability to return back to contact training and then eventually back to match play in their graduated return to play process.
Just staying with rugby, it's a sport that sort of got you into the profession that you're doing now or wanting to do now. Yeah. You studied at Armidale, the University of New England, where you were asked by a bloke called Dr. James Donnelly to help out.
Yeah, that's
that was
right.
a bit of it. Was that a turning point a little bit?
Absolutely. It's really the foundation of where my passion and enthusiasm and interest in neuropsychology, but also in studying concussion germinated from, I guess. So I was a second-year undergraduate student doing a psychology degree and a professor at the University of New England where I was studying, as you say, Professor James Donnelly, was teaching a class, and that class was on cognition and cognitive assessment. And as part of that process, I just had so many questions after, I think it was one of the second lectures of the semester. And I spent and it was him being gracious with his time. I spent about 45 minutes to an hour just asking him questions and talking to him about different things. And then the next time we had a lecture, he pulled me aside afterwards and said that he had a research assistant role helping out with the collection of cognitive data at the local school, who was a boys' school at the time. It's now co-ed school, private school, and focused on their rugby program and testing cognitive abilities in their rugby team.
So were you were already there, was it psychology?
Yeah. Yep.
So, but when you got there, did you ever thought that you would have skewed that way?
No, I've always loved how the brain functions and the mind and kind of the mental side of things, performance side of things. And I'd always thought, well, actually, I enrolled in the University of New England doing an arts law degree, and I started out enjoying the law subjects until they started to get really challenging in terms of the content that I was reading and the precedents that were set. And I guess I was naive at the time and young and couldn't see myself doing that kind of work. And I was doing, as part of that, it's a double degree, I was doing an arts side of things, and I was doing psychology and philosophy were the two subjects that I really pushed down the track on. And so when I started to think about, psychology is fantastic, it's the way I've always thought and been fascinated by for multiple years, and I thought, okay, well, what can I do? And one of the things that I always thought was I'll be a sports psychologist because I love sport, and helping people perform to the optimum levels would be the way to go. And then when I met Dr. Donnelly, and he showed me cognitive assessments and the concussion side of things, that's where I really became extremely passionate about that. And ever since then, so I was in 2002. So ever since then, I've really focused on that.
They're the real the Armidale school's got a real rugby culture. I had the pleasure of going. I was working with NBN in Tamworth for only 9 months, but we did a lot of stories up in Armidale, and they had a great media department. They were just always throwing us stories of different angles because they had, the equestrian. They had an equestrian centre.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But I remember going up there on my day off because what I used to do is that when I always thought I'm not going to stay in Tamworth all my life. So this is sort of like a stepping stone. So while I'm here, I'm going to smell the roses. I'm going to, on my days off, I'm going to, go to Gunnedah, go to Narrabri, Walker, all these little places that I never would normally go to. But I used to love going to Armidale, and I don't know what it was about, and I don't know whether you maybe agree or not. It was a bit of a cosmopolitan feel about it, probably because of the university, the cafes and things like that, which didn't really happen in Tamworth. But I remember going up there one Saturday morning. There was a game between the Armidale verse 15, and they brought up St Joey's from Sydney. I've never seen anything like it. A Saturday morning, it was a crisp Saturday morning, and the whole school had turned out to watch in their blazers.
Yeah.
It was almost like have I been transported to England here? And the hedge that goes around the field, it was like I was somewhere on the other side of the world.
Yeah. I can't speak highly enough of Armidale. I absolutely loved my time there. I lived there for 5 years. My first 2 years as an undergraduate student was spent in college, living on campus at Earl Page College, and it was fantastic. And I did. I played football, soccer, and our team at the university was a combined TAS University of New England team, and so our reserve grade team was basically the TAS boys, and our first grade team were a bunch of university students. And we had mixed results because when the term is finished, everybody goes back to their home towns, and we have to put in a ragtag team of whoever's still around. And the students usually were boarders and they left. So we have probably 6 rounds out of 18 where we just don't have any players to play, and sometimes we're forfeiting. So we're behind the 8 ball. But my first year was the first year that we made it through to the semi-finals. We'd never really made it through because we just struggled. And we had some really, really good players and a bunch of guys from TAS that were awesome, and the school just supported phenomenally. So we played home games at UNE and some of our home games at TAS, and every time we were at TAS, it was like you're a semi-professional footballer because you were there, and they were rowdy and really, really supportive.
And I also remember, obviously, it's dripping with money, the place. I turned up and there was a soccer game about to be played that morning, and the nets were up, and there was like 3 groundsmen, doing the lines. It was like something you see at McDonald Jones Stadium, like it was getting ready for this game, which I don't know whether they were that great at soccer, but obviously rugby union was their forte.
Yeah.
But and even the girls' school, the Negs, that was an outstanding school. But just staying with Armidale, I mean. Also, in my travels when I went there, I went to a pub in Armidale, so the New England Hotel.
Newey,
did you know that we got a picture? I walked out the back and there was a piano. There it is there.
Yep.
And all of a sudden I'm seeing all these Peter Allen pictures. And I'm like, what's the go here? What's the thing? There was some maracas, and I think it was the maracas were on the piano. I said, what's this? They said, oh, this piano, this was Peter Allen's first piano he ever played in public. Like when he was 9, he was playing in the front bar and people were throwing him money for his family. And I'm going, that should be in glass.
Yeah. You imagine there's a few coasters and schooners that have been put on that piano at times.
But it's amazing too, isn't it? Is that you learn more about it, because I had no idea that he actually started in Armidale. I thought it was Tenterfield, but I think it was a mini-series they had. They showed that his father committed suicide in Armidale. And back then, obviously, if you killed yourself, it was frowned upon by the community because it was a mental illness.
Yeah.
And the whole family got more or less ostracised and forced them to move to Tenterfield. So back then it would have been a totally different story with mental illness, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's the history of mental illness and how things have, I guess, changed over time is it's fascinating to think about how people were treated, and it wasn't really that long ago, and how, as you said, families are ostracised. Even when people are diagnoses are made and put in asylums, and the way they're treated in those asylums, and illnesses that we know are treatable and can be supported these days, they obviously didn't really understand that back then. And there's some horrible, horrific stories.
Well, even there's a list of mental illnesses, or how you were, I suppose, perceived as having mental illness back then, like demonic possession, moral deviance, which is being deemed to having a bad character, lack of reasoning, superstitions, beliefs about the influence of the moon and other superstitions. My God, the asylums or the jails would be overflowing if they were doing that these days. I know dozens of people, well, maybe not the demonic possession bit, but some of the other ones.
Yeah, even dementia was considered to be a mental illness even in the 1800s, so really early on when we didn't really understand too much about dementia. So as a lot of people understand now, the normal ageing process does result in people getting slightly worse with their thinking skills. And when that's accelerated or a lot worse than normal, and it starts to affect multiple cognitive domains and it interferes with their ability to function in life, then that meets criteria for a diagnosis of dementia. And way back then, that was considered to be a mental illness, and people were getting thrown in asylums and not managed and treated well at all.
Well, there was a Callum Park hospital, which is in, I think, Lilyfield. I think we got a picture of it in Sydney. I used to walk past this because I lived in Balmain, so I used to go for long walks, and here it is. And some of the stories you hear that came out of there were absolute horror stories. It was more like experiments half the time. But funny about that was that I only found out yesterday that my grandfather, he was admitted in there. Wow. So he went to he worked on the railway. He used to put sleepers down for the railway before the World War II, and went away to the war, but came back just totally the different person than what he was, and we spent time there. It was never the same, and I only just found that out yesterday. It was quite, but isn't it like with those cases back then? It's sad that these days, most of those things would have been treatable now,
Yeah, a lot of the medications that have been developed subsequently were not available back then. Obviously, they've been discovered over time, but just in terms of the cognitive behavioural therapy and the theories behind working with that, and just counselling and helping people to make the symptoms that they're experiencing normalised or feel more normal, and it was seen completely differently. So we know now that it's not necessarily a personality thing or a problem that can be controlled. It's a chemical imbalance, and that's why there are medications that are prescribed to help balance those chemicals back up and make them feel what people would consider to be normal. But it's also, I feel like some of the times putting labels on people give them an opportunity to know, okay, now I know what it is. I've got somewhere to move forward to either treat it or to manage it in a certain way, which is also very important. But being told that you're not right and that you shouldn't be in society and getting locked away is not helpful.
Mm-hmm. Just being a psychologist, I mean, I've always been told to be careful of psychologists.
That's fair.
Because when you go to a party, they try and work you out. Are you one of those people that sit back and think about, when someone's talking to you, like you can sort of tell in a way who that person is?
I think I've probably always thought that way throughout my entire life in terms of why is that person saying that, what's going on in their world for them to have that opinion or to be talking about it in that way or to have responded to such a remark in the way that they have. And I don't feel like I analyse people in a social setting, but I've always been fascinated by people's behaviour and what they say and wondering where it comes from. And so trying to understand that, trying to be empathetic towards it. And I think one of the greatest quotes that I have heard is trying to be, it comes from Ted Lasso, and it's a really great series. But you've got to be curious, not judgmental. So if you take that view, then you're giving yourself an opportunity to be open to hearing what they're saying and where it's come from, rather than putting your own biases on it and thinking that they're saying something because they are such and such. So we know from social psychology that there's a thing called cognitive dissonance in terms of if you have a belief, it's very hard to turn that belief around. Because you then need to basically say to yourself internally that, oh, hang on a second, I was wrong here, and people don't like to be wrong. So you kind of hold on to your beliefs strongly, and believing is seeing as opposed to seeing is believing. So you actually look for evidence to support those beliefs as opposed to trying to be balanced and unbiased by taking on new information to change potentially what you have always thought. But the cognitive dissonance leads you to have difficulty doing that.
I can tell this is going to be a good therapy session for me. I hope you're not going to charge me much for this session. I suppose these days, people have changed so much these days, and do you think social media's played a part? And do you think it also can play a part in mental illness in regards to constantly being online all the time? And I suppose what you just sort of mentioned, trying to be someone they're not, maybe.
Yeah, I kind of perceive the social media, and not that I'm on it, but social media as a highlight reel. So large majority of people are putting on their life highlights, and you don't want to get caught in the comparison game, because once you start to do that, then it's going to go one of two ways. You're either going to be judgmental and say, oh, I'm better than this person, or my life's going better than that, or the other alternative is that you see what they're doing, you see their highlights reel, and you think, oh, wow, they've got their life together and everything's fantastic, and why can't I be as organised as them, or why can't I achieve what they're achieving? And one of the things with the mental performance coaching that I do is some of the things that I say is that success leaves clues, and life's a strategy game, not a talent game. So if you find somebody who's been successful and you want to achieve what they've achieved, you follow their strategy and you'll get what they got. But you need to work hard, and you need to keep working at that strategy until that strategy works for you. You're
not on social media at all?
No, not.
Never been, or?
I think when it first started, I jumped on, and I do try and stay in touch with people through other avenues. But I have other people that are on social media that let me know what's going on if I need to know something. So it works out.
But there is I suppose there is a lot of information on social media, but I suppose you gather it from other ways, I take it.
Yeah. I guess it's something that I used to routinely watch the 6 o'clock news every day. And
Well, when I was on it, you definitely did.
yeah, that's how I first came to admire you. Yeah. So that was something that we did routinely as a family growing up is watch what's going on, and I feel like I knew, well, based on what the news was reporting, I feel like I knew a lot about current affairs and world news and everything that was going on. But then I got to a point where I guess I was starting to make decisions around what I wanted to feed myself, and what you put into yourself is what you're going to put out. And I just feel like a lot of the reported news was really either sensationalized or really negative.
Yeah.
And I feel like getting all that negative information in all the time was not great. And I don't want to be ignorant to a lot of really important issues that are going on. But I felt like I could do a whole lot more and be better for other people by just not putting all that information in. So I just kind of stopped following it. And embarrassingly, potentially, because people do like to know what's going on, I couldn't tell you too much about a lot of things that are going on. I've just focused on what I really want to be good at, so that I can help the people that I potentially come across. And I don't need to be across everything that's going on in the world to be good at what I'm trying to do.
Because even today, just coming in here, it's not something you would do, is it? You know, and I had to sort of, I'm not coax you yet, but we'll get into that a little bit later regarding the way media's reported. But does that have has that been a real scar for you in regards to just the way the media is, and just stepping out of the limelight? Not that you've ever been after the limelight, but it just seems like to me you're just happy to go in your own lane and just worry about what you have to do, which is so important.
Yeah, I think when you can be focused on the things that you feel like are your areas that you want to be, not being single focused, but almost single focused, is really important for maximising your potential to help others. So ultimately, that's all I want to do. I want to help the next generation of researchers come through and to achieve great things, gain knowledge. It's something that I really thrive on, which is why I've been drawn to being a researcher, is because I can ask the questions that I'm really most interested in, and then I can conduct a study that answers those questions for me and for everybody else. And so focusing on that, focusing on serving the community that I choose to serve is really important to me as well. And being able to do that with that kind of almost single focus is really important.
Your kids, are they on social media or?
I think the oldest two have just got a Facebook account. Yeah. But our youngest one, he's not on social media. No.
Yeah. So you don't encourage it?
No, not really. But it is I appreciate that it's an avenue that they can communicate with their friends and things on, and everybody's doing it. But I think there's lots of boundaries that we put around that and what they're exposed to and looking at.
The brain's an interesting thing, isn't it? In so many ways, in regards to, I suppose, even choosing life, in regards to where you go, your next step, what you did. But even things like, I don't know, even with betting, stuff like that, it's, you get on that high if, if you win something, it's almost like you want to bet again. Yeah. Is that part of the brain? It's like that. It's like a mania, like a hype.
Yeah, there's a lot of literature and research that's gone into what we call addiction. So yes, gambling is part of that. Getting that high, so to speak, is it's what we call the mesolimbic dopamine system. So dopamine's a neurotransmitter that is involved in feeling good, and so when you get that dopamine high that some people talk about, it can come from athletes as well, running out in front of thousands of people, and then collision sport athletes, in terms of just the physical contact and the strength and the training that goes into all of that as well is another way. And then, of course, we've got people that are addicted to illicit substances and alcohol and other things, and that's all part of that same brain pathway that, whenever you fuel it, it consistently asks for more. So there's a certain level that you can get to, and then it's what we refer to as habituation. So you get to a certain level of exposure and you don't get that same level of high, so you need to up the exposure a little bit higher. So that's when you start to get into the dangerous territory with those that are addicted to illicit substances, starting to use doses that can potentially be lethal and accidental overdoses and those kinds of things.
Just, I think I always ask this question every week so far in regards to AI. It's becoming so prevalent now. It's getting more and more in everyone's everyday life. I mean, look at that shithouse voiceover for that Wallabies thing we just watched. But would you in the future look to use AI in any way in your research?
Well, I think people are already doing it and it's being adopted. One of the things that I would really caution everybody about is there's a use it or lose it principle with the brain. And so it's like a muscle. If you're working out in the gym and you're trying to get big biceps, then you're going to do curls. Curls get the girls. And then you consistently start to lift more and you're putting more strain on that muscle so that it gets stronger and bigger and continues to work. It's the same as the pathways in the brain. So the circulatory of the brain fires, and so it's an electrical impulse. And if you get really consistent and do certain tasks, you'll get better and better and better at it because that circulatory is firing, and things that fire together wire together, and that wire gets stronger. So it might start off as a thin thread and it just gradually gets into this really strong cable.
Yeah.
And if we're using AI to make the thinking and the research and all of those things for us, while it's nice and easy and becomes easy for us to do, then we're not using the brain as much as what we usually were. And if we're relying on that much more, then that circulatory that would normally be used to do that thought process then becomes less worked. And eventually, if you're not going to use it at all, it's just going to disappear. One of the things that I think captures that really well is the kids' movie WALL-E. And
Dave,
I agree.
yeah.
My brain went there straight away.
Yeah. So for those that are listening to this and haven't seen WALL-E before, it's worth a watch. It's entertaining, but basically the whole lifestyle of the people that are in that movie becomes so sedentary that they have everything done for them that they just become really incapacitated physically, and although it's not depicted in the movie, mentally as well.
Because I suppose with the brain too is that with AI, I mean, obviously AI is doing stuff that your brain would normally be thinking of doing, like writing or anything like that, which definitely over time would become, make your brain lazy. Would that be?
Yeah, it can do, but I think also, as I was saying, the inability of the brain to work in certain ways and for those circuits to be firing and consistently working well is problematic if you're going to rely on AI substantially. So I'm not saying don't use AI at all. If you've got a 1,000-page document that you need to go through, you can stick it into AI and ask them what the key points are. That's helpful, but you don't want to start having it do the thinking for you. And even more dangerously, particularly in the area that I work in, if people are going to start to use it as a university student, writing assessments.
Well, I was just about to say that. Is that a worry?
It is. When I guess it can be picked up when students have almost identical assessment tasks that are being submitted, and there's certain ways that the AI writes paragraphs and constructs arguments and things that you can kind of see that it doesn't look like it's their own thoughts. But yeah, it is a concern, and I think I've seen a report of some professors at other universities, I think overseas, using AI to teach the classes in terms of what the important aspects of graduate attributes are. So they're using AI to focus on that.
I think there's a lecturer, maybe in England or America, where he's gone back to old school. They've got to write their exams out because he just doesn't trust the fact what he's getting back. Maybe we have to get back to that. Especially, I'm just sort of thinking very important jobs. I mean, there's going to be a lot of jobs wiped out because of AI over time. And again, we've got doctors and people in your position where if they're getting in through doing that with AI, it's not going to help anyone in the long term, is it?
No, that's right. Yeah, it's when you put it in that context, it does become concerning. If somebody can get through their credentials and degree and they're qualified, and the expectation is that they perform at a certain level, but they are not thinking for themselves, yeah, that's problematic.
Yeah, we're going to get more into your personal life a little bit more down the track, but let's get right into it. CTE, it's in the headlines, big time now more than ever. It's been around, I suppose, under the surface, undiagnosed for years. It's in all contact sports. It's really a big part of your life. God, when it comes to contact sports, would it just be easier if everyone just tackled from the waist down?
Sounds like it could be an easy solution, but it's really not. And a lot of the research that we're doing in terms of looking at the mechanisms of injury for tackle-related sports like rugby league and rugby union, moving the tackle height or the contact area is a potential way of reducing the risk, but it's not going to eliminate it altogether. So we've got contact sports where people are hitting into each other, and the objective for a ball carrier is to evade a tackle or to try and get over the advantage line, for example, and they're not going to just run straight and know exactly where the tackler's not going to know exactly where the ball carrier is and be able to execute a tackle perfectly every time. There's lots of different things that happen. And moving it down to below the waist, as the example that you just used there, we know that one of the greatest areas of risk is the head to hip area, and the hip is pretty hard. So number one risk area is two upright people going into a tackle, so upright ball carrier, upright tackler, and head-to-head contact, or the ball carrier's shoulder hitting the head of the tackler. And then the next greatest risk is that head to hip. So we can't go too low and we don't want to go high, and it's the in-between where we need that first contact to try and be.
I mean, describe CTE in a nutshell.
Well, it's one of the things that we need to do is to decipher between what we're talking about in terms of that term that we're using. So CTE is a neuropathological characterization of, and what I mean by neuropathological is that it's brain tissue looked at post-mortem, so after the person's passed away, and seeing a certain pattern of phosphorylated tau in certain areas of the brain. And what we need to do is to make sure that we don't say that this pathology is, in terms of what we're talking about, is not a clinical syndrome at this point in time. So there's controversy around that because there's a lot of research groups that are saying that the pathology and the clinical symptoms in life are one and the same. But a lot of the research, if you have a look at even the people that are saying that, it's not a one-to-one relationship between this bit of pathology in this part of the brain equals this kind of symptom. But
to be 100% that it's CTE, the person has to be dead.
That's right, yep.
So then there's, I suppose, you can only report it as symptoms or maybe CTE or if that sort of thing. Because again, there's so many other things like it's got links to, dementia, motor neuron, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's.
Yeah, so they're all dementias as well that we are getting better and good at diagnosing in life. At the moment, we can't diagnose CTE in life, and you can suspect things, but you can't make a diagnosis, and we need a lot more research that includes prospective studies, so collecting information in life, getting clinical kind of characterization of what the individual is like before they pass away, and then having a look at what their brain pathology is like to see what the links potentially are between the two. And I guess the important thing that I haven't mentioned is that the research that is being conducted is being suggested to be as a result of their participation in contact and collision sports or involvement in other activities that would result in them having not only concussions, but just blows to the head that don't lead to symptoms of concussion.
Yeah. I mean, so essentially, it's a case-by-case study, isn't it? Every one is different.
Yeah, it still is at the moment, yeah. There is a lot of researchers around the world having a look at this, and there are groups around the world that have been doing it for multiple years, and there's one particular group in the world that is leading the way in terms of how many brains that their brain bank has analysed, and so they've been reporting on this for a number of years.
Yeah, so it'd be fair to say that because there's so many forms and links, it makes it all hard to work out for the average person looking at it. All sports, they do have you've got to deal with these things on a case-by-case, as you mentioned, but class actions, that's been a big part of, I suppose, bringing this forward, hasn't it, in regards, especially in America with the NFL, where, ex-players are suing the NFL, and the NFL's got the money to pay these players off, haven't they, where there's other sports which you can't do that, can you? It'll more or less destroy a code.
Yeah, I try not to get into that part of the kind of environment, but the codes need to and are doing a great job in terms of trying to investigate this, supporting research that is investigating this area and trying to reduce the risk for the current and next generation of athlete. And so although there's a number of researchers that are suggesting that this is a huge problem for a large number of people, even if that is true, if we take that on their opinion as being accurate, then we need to, as researchers, as clinicians that are working in the area, as medical staff, and then also the governing bodies, need to be making decisions that will reduce that risk. And so things like changing tackle heights, like we talked about just before, trying to reduce the risk of head-to-head contact or potential concussions, removing players from play when they have suspected concussion. So the HIA that's been introduced for almost 10 years now, making sure that players that have suspected concussion don't return back to play in the same game. So just reducing that potential to have blows on top of blows that could lead to greater consequences, not only now, but potentially in the future as well.
I suppose too, and I know you don't want to sort of go into the legal side of things in regards to class actions and stuff, but I suppose it's hard to get a class action up there's class actions, starting up in obviously AFL, NRL, British Rugby League, Rugby Union at the moment. But as you get back to, how do you know that all this CTE has been caused purely by playing the sport? Kids fall out of trees, they fall off horses, car accidents, all these sort of things that would contribute in later life. So it would be hard. I find it hard that any of these class actions could get up purely on the basis that unless you have got the life story of someone's head knocks, it's very hard to put them all in one bunch and say they're all CTE.
Yeah, it is challenging. I'm not involved in any of that and what the onus of proof is in terms of what an individual needs to show in the legal system to demonstrate that they can be compensated for either mismanagement or whatever it is that it tends to be. But certainly what you're saying is correct. It is challenging. There's lots of other reasons why somebody might present with the symptoms that have been suggested to be part of CTE. So somebody later in life may have depression and they may have other signs and symptoms that people are saying are related to some kind of neuropathological condition. It is challenging because there's lots of other reasons why people could head along that path. Again, we need to do more research and continue to do research in that area, and it's up to the legal system.
How long's a piece of string? Yeah. Ex-players, how important are they? Like Tamana Tahu.
Yeah.
To have someone like him come to you and help you do this, incredible case study. Is that hard for a start? There he is there, but is it hard to get players to want to do that?
I guess I, again, would be biased because a lot of the people that come and see us and are part of our research program and also just talk to me as a result of being interested in what we're doing, they're very receptive and very interested in being part of it. We know that there are other people that are concerned and they don't want to know, and then there's other people that we just don't see at all. So it's very hard to say, to make a generalised statement that people are receptive. And we do have individual cases like Tamana, who we're working with on tackle technique, and he's great and been brilliant to work with. Another person who I don't think will mind if I mention him is Martin Lang. He's done a PhD with us now, so Dr. Martin Lang, and he's brilliant. He was a very, very hard player, played at the
He really
level.
led with the head, didn't he?
Yeah, so a lot of his attacking play was not moving off the line at all, and so in the game when he played, there wasn't the I guess restrictions on impact as they are nowadays. So the shoulder charge was something that was legal, and people knew that Martin wasn't going to run off his line, so they could just line him up and hit him hard. And so he had a lot of what you would refer to as a whiplash-like event, and he got hit in the head a number of times as well. And so it's he's doing quite well.
Do you feel though, with those players, especially later in their career, or later in life after they finish, they're worried? A lot of them don't want to come forward because they probably know in the back of their head that they've got something, but they don't want to actually hear it from the horse's mouth. Would that be?
Yeah. No, I think that's fair to say. There are some people that are like that. One of the other things that I would say also is that we do really need to educate them on the brain being very, very resilient to a lot of things, and the capacity for regeneration rather than neurogeneration. So teaching them what the risk factors are, how they can have a healthy lifestyle to move forward to give themselves the best opportunity to have brain health is really, really important as well. Sorry. Excuse me. So that's really important education around that. But also if they don't want to know, then that's absolutely fine as well. But hopefully they can take on board the education that they can have some control over how healthy their brain will be moving forward is really important. Because,
back in the day, way back in the day, the 70s and 80s, it was a different time for all codes, wasn't it? It was almost like the wild, wild west. You got hurt, you got hit in the head, they strap something on your head, bit of magic water, get back on there. And back then, I suppose the clubs as well, that culture of, you get a concussion, it probably wasn't diagnosed maybe, from a layman's point of view, from a sideline. Then they go back in the club and drink alcohol for the rest of the night. It's probably not the best thing after being concussed.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I think you make a really good point there, and I do talk about this amongst my colleagues and a few other people sometimes in presentations that I give as well, is that the sport that we're talking about here, when we collect data on people that are in their 80s, people in their 70s, in their 60s, in their 50s, and we say, okay, we've collected data on former elite level, let's just say rugby league players. We're not talking about the same exposure or the same sport. They played a completely different game when they were playing in the 60s, 70s, 80s, even part of the 90s compared to what we're talking about now. And we make the assumption without knowing exactly what the data is going to tell us just yet that the game back then was different and possibly more brutal in terms of some of the impacts it had, and spear tackles that went on back then and head-high tackles, the old coat hanger as they used to refer to it. That's all been outlawed and very well, I guess, removed from the game now. And then also training as well. You can still get concussions and exposure at training.
Exactly, yeah. And I suppose they're the ones that a lot of the training ones would be undiagnosed, because it's almost like, I suppose when there's a game on, there's cameras, there's everybody's looking at the game, but the training session, two blokes bump heads, they go, oh, sorry, they get move on. But there might be a lot that stems off the back of training.
Yeah, and it's an important point that you make as well, is because a lot of the signs or the symptoms more so of concussion can be covert, which means that an observer can't see them. So we know that headache is the most frequently reported post-concussion symptom, and you can't see a headache. You can see behaviour that might indicate that they may have a headache or pressure in the head, but you can't measure it, you can't see it, and you need the athlete to report that to you. So we still need to be really educating all of the athletes about what a concussion sign or symptom may look like, and encouraging them and changing the culture around them reporting that so that they can be managed appropriately.
Yeah.
At Elk Architecture, we don't just design buildings, we shape the spaces where life happens. From concept to construction, our award-winning architects bring our vision to life with precision, passion, and purpose. Whether it's your dream home or your next big commercial project, trust Elk Architecture to build what matters most. Elk Architecture, designed for life, built for the future.
Kids in sport. I mean, obviously it's a totally different proposition, with where do we sit with that in regards to, I mean, people go, headgear and all that sort of stuff. Is there a certain time when players, kids should be playing contact sport?
Yeah, well, it's my belief that kids should be given every opportunity to participate in sport, and it's obviously the parents' decision on what sports they want them to participate in, whether that be non-contact sport or a contact sport or even a combat sport, so things like boxing and karate and those kinds of things. And so they need to be making informed decisions as well, so they need to know what the potential risks are, and they need to make a decision based on where their level of risk that they're happy to take on board is. But there's lots and lots of benefits of participating in sport, being in that kind of competitive environment with a team working together, and all of the physical health benefits as well. But then you do have on the other side of it, if you are playing a sport where you may get hit in the head, you potentially can sustain a concussion, and even blows to the head that don't result in a concussion. Some people are suggesting that that could be consequence of that as well. But one of the things is there's been a push to say that there's an age where you shouldn't do any kind of contact and you should learn to tackle at a certain age later than XYZ age. It's been arbitrarily selected to be 12, and now it's gone up in a couple of years for some people that keep mentioning this. The research in terms of the age of first exposure to concussion, first exposure to the sport is mixed in terms of some people say, yeah, well, we should be limiting that, and others are saying, well, we don't see that in our data set. And so one of the things that we also need to consider is what the unexpected or unintentional consequences could be. So that if we say, oh, you can't tackle until the age of 12, 13, 14, 15, whatever age we decide to put it on, then the potential risk with them not going through that skill development in those critical ages of them then going into contact and starting to tackle, for example, in rugby league or rugby union at the age of 15 for the first time ever, we might see an exponential increase in the risks of injuries, not only concussion, but other shoulder injuries and everything else. So that's something that needs to be really carefully considered by people that are making decisions around policy in terms of what the risks are for both sides of that argument.
What about females as well? Is it a different ball game?
Again, when we talk about concussion specifically, there's a mixed literature in terms of the risk for females versus males. There tends to be in most of the literature that the females may be at a higher risk of sustaining a concussion and at a higher risk of having longer symptoms, or symptoms last longer. But again, that's a mixed bag as well. It's very challenging to compare directly males to female sport because there's different modifications of the game between the two sports often, and between the two sexes in the same sport, I should say. And a lot of the literature that we do have male and female participants are from collegiate athletes in the US. And so football or soccer is one example where the sports are very similar in terms of gameplay style and everything between the two sports. And we do see that predominantly females are sustaining more concussions in that sport than males. But when we talk about other sports like hockey, for example, so ice hockey, the sports are modified in the female game. You're not supposed to be involved in checking. It's a little bit different. In terms of lacrosse, there are different rules in that sport as well. So it's very hard to say males or females are at higher or less of a risk, and we just need to have a look at those sports individually and look at that.
Just staying with that lacrosse, and I suppose with rugby league, rugby union, you can see a collision come. Well, you're going straight towards. You can brace yourself. That's what I'm trying to say before a tackle. Where like lacrosse, ice hockey, AFL, you're getting blindsided, which the potential for head injuries obviously would be even worse, where you don't even see it coming. Would that be a fair?
So yeah, what you're referring to there is usually 360-degree sports.
Yeah.
So AFL is certainly a 360-degree sport, and you're contesting for possession of the ball a lot. Soccer is also a 360-degree sport. And you can see in these examples here where players just have eyes for the ball, and they are probably aware, because they're at an elite level of the game, that there's contact coming, but they don't know exactly when that's going to be. And as you say, they can't brace for impact. And so those kind of shots, as an example just there, are trying to be outlawed out of the game. But you see that, for example, is two players going for the ball, and that's, very unfortunate incident, that one, head-to-head contact.
So, I mean, with that, you just mentioned that they're at a professional level. So, as you mentioned, sometimes they know who's around them, and at a lower level, like country rugby league, country AFL, or all that sort of stuff, totally different ball game.
Yeah.
Would you see probably more problems with the sport at grassroots level than that?
So, one of the things that happens is that skill acquisition improves, and those that are at elite level of the game obviously make it right through to the elite level. But we know that over 90%, probably 99% of registered athletes are playing at a non-elite level.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about community level sport, there is the chance that the skill level hasn't been developed quite as much. There might be clumsy contacts that happen that wouldn't necessarily happen at the elite level. One of the things, though, at the community level is that they're probably not going running as fast or as built as what these guys are. So sometimes that risk can be a little bit lower, but then because of the acquisition of skill and the skill level, there can be clumsy contacts as well that lead to a greater risk. So at the community level, we need to be really aware of what concussion signs and symptoms and potential concussion looks like, and we're making sure that we're reducing that risk. And then also just investigating from a coaching perspective how you can teach the athletes to be more aware of their environment, how to respond to things, and how to go into contests like what we've just been witnessing on the screen, in terms of bracing for impacts and being spatially aware of things that are going on around you.
I noticed, I think it was last week, you went to the Sydney Swans. What do you do there? Is it talking with their coaches, or did you get to talk to the players, or is it just in regards to what's your role there? Is it a case of telling them how to brace, or are you just the person at the end of the line that worries about it once it happens?
Yeah, most of the time it is the end of the line thing. So, so the AFL have a fantastic brain health initiative that they've started as a pilot program this year in 2 clubs. I'm fortunate enough to be involved with the Swans, who are a fantastic organisation. They've welcomed me with open arms, and even though I'm a kind of external person going in there to try and help the AFL with that.
I was going to say that. Is that a worry? Like when you go in, like for any job, when you're coming in from the outside, is that bit of? I guess we need to be overseen here.
Yeah. I guess I don't personally tend to worry about it too much. I know I'm there to do a job, and I know that role is important, and whether they can see it or not, I'm not necessarily there to convince them. I just serve that community in the best way that I can. But yeah, no, they've been fantastic, and so as part of that brain health initiative with the AFL, it's really looking at doing assessments with all of the players, whether they've sustained a concussion or not, collecting a whole bunch of information, and if they do have a concussion, then we're doing a whole bunch of testing, and hopefully having the players sign up to the research arm of that, we can put all of that information in, de-identified in a database, and then researchers can have a look at that database when enough information's been collected.
Have you had as much feedback from AFL players as what you have with rugby league?
No, not me personally. I haven't. Don't think I've seen ex-AFL players at all as part of our research program.
Why do you think that?
Probably because we haven't advertised to them.
Okay.
Yeah, it probably comes down to funding in terms of our ability to service every single community. So, we just haven't been able to do every single sport and every single athlete that we can come across our path.
It seems like you've got a job where there's just so much stuff to unpack, so much things happening. It's almost like, how many people do you have to help you do this?
Yes, so a lot of this is really a team effort, and so we've got a full-time research assistant and a full-time research coordinator, and then I have a number of collaborators that are interdisciplinary experts right across the world. So we have neuroimaging experts that we work with. We have other neuropsychologists that are experts as well, and so it is a team effort, even though I lead the team, and it tends to be a lot of focus on me and what I'm doing. It is a team effort, and I wouldn't be able to do anywhere near the amount of work that I do if I didn't have the awesome support from the team and collaborators that I do have. So that there would be probably around 15 to 20 of us that are working on things. And then we have students, so we're trying to educate the next generation of researchers, so PhD students, master's level students, what we call higher degree research students who are coming in, and we're getting them to do a lot of the work and work on projects and teaching them how to conduct good science.
In regards to funding, obviously the AFL and the NRL have put money towards it. Funding's so important, isn't it? Is it hard to find that? Is that the big thing? Is that, is it frustrating where you want to go down a path but you go, I can't do that unless I've got the money to do that?
Yeah. No, it's always a challenge for all researchers and all research programs to make sure that your funding matches what your ambitions are, and we can't overpromise on outcomes that we just can't afford to produce. But obviously having a team around me, like I said, is really important, and being able to fund them to be there full time to work is probably one of our greatest expenses in terms of running a research program. And it's just absolutely fundamental to have those people involved and the right people involved. And then the actual expenses of having brain imaging available to you, having neuropathology available to you through the brain banks, being able to conduct the cognitive assessments, being able to have platforms and storage of data, lots and lots of things go into it. And you can only do the amount of work that you can with the level of funding that you're able to achieve. And it is challenging because we are in the medical research field, and there are lots and lots of competing conditions that need to be studied, who have researchers that are equally as passionate as in their field as what I am in mine.
There must be so many different paths to go down in regards to research. Do you ever sort of go down one path and sort of, I don't know, get to a point where you've had money to do it, but then run out of money, but then go, okay, we've got to leave that there and then start down this one, but we got to get back to that? Or is it a case of you really need to have enough money just to go whole and solely down one path without leaving it hanging? Or?
Yeah, so the way it typically works is that when you apply for funding, you do have an outline of the research program that you want to run. And so to meet the funding or the funders' requirements, you need to have an outcome. And so we are almost always able to finish what we start. But there are further ideas that then develop as a result of walking that journey of going down in that investigation, and then you come up with more ideas, you learn more, and you think, okay, well, let's take that further by going along this path or along that path. And I think there's three main research programs that I run out of the University of Sydney, and that's the Former Athlete Brain Health Research Program, which we've been running since 2012. We've seen over 400 people as part of that research program. Then, as I was mentioning just before, we have basically a video analysis library that we've created, 7 seasons worth of NRL data of HIAs and head impact events that we're evaluating. And then we have the Tackle re-education program with Tamana Tahu and Associate Professor Susie Edwards, who's a biomechanics and sports science expert that we're working on trying to create and validate safer rugby league and rugby union style tackles, and we're doing that through a biomechanics approach.
Just staying with that, rugby league, rugby union, both codes very similar. Is it a case of maybe merging things in certain things where you look at?
You can in certain ways, but although they are similar, they're very, very different in terms of the way gameplay goes and the tackle. So if I focus just on the tackle, because that's what we're working on, the rugby league style tackle versus the rugby union style tackle are two completely different mechanisms and biomechanical approaches, and a successful tackle looks completely different in both of those sports. So it's all well and good for us to say, okay, well, we should do this and everyone should be tackling like this, and we make the sport safer. But if it doesn't have a performance aspect and it results in people missing tackles or the ball being played much quicker and the defensive lines not being set, then it's not going to be adopted by the players and it's not going to be adopted by coaches. So we need to be really focused on not only reducing risk, but also for the adoption and the uptake of these findings, we really need to be focused on that performance outcome as well.
I'm going to bring something up that's probably going to make you squirm, but I'm going to say it anyway. You've copped a little bit of flack in the last few years regarding your research, which I think is outrageous, and I just can't believe. I've done my research, leading into this interview, and I never really sort of looked at it too hard, but now that I have, it sort of makes me sick in a way. This is from some others that are in your line of work as well. A couple of years ago, one of these head knock experts called for you to be stood down by the AFL because of an investigation from the NRL stemming from an NRL-funded research project, which you were cleared of any wrongdoing by the NRL. But that must have been a bloody disappointing time for you.
Yeah, it is. And I guess without going into too many details or mentioning anybody's names, there was a claim put in against our ethical governance around our research and particularly naming certain participants who were involved and what they had reported. And unfortunately, the person that heard that information didn't do their research and made assumptions based on the biases that person has either towards our program or to me personally, and put in a claim against the ethics, which is it's part of the process, and claims can go in whenever they want and all the time. And so the ethics committee needs to investigate that, and that investigation was extremely thorough. It took them 9+ months to investigate.
So did that mean you had just put the tools down? Yeah,
we did. So we put everything on hold while that was cleared. And so, we got involved in other things that were not that particular program. So as you say, the investigation was thorough, underwent, very, very thoroughly.
I suppose it was like a case of, the headlines travels fast, science takes time. All this is important to be reported, but it's got to be done, I suppose, with an open mind, because a lot of the CTE stories I'm seeing in the media at the moment, it's almost like it's done, signed, sealed, delivered, this person has CTE. When we just mentioned before that there's so many different other elements to it in regards to maybe where that person is now to where he came from in regards to even with the NRL. Again, someone could have an accident. Not everything is. I'm not in any way downplaying CTE. Let me tell you, but it's almost like to actually say that this person has CTE 100% cannot be made claim on any type of, whether it's a news report or in the newspaper, unless his brain's cut open to see whether it actually is.
Yeah, I think it's probably a good point to bring up in terms of the hierarchy of scientific evidence. And when we talk about individual cases, so that's a case study, it's at the lower end of our strength of evidence. And when we talk about anecdotal cases, that's at the very lowest end of the spectrum. So when we have reports in the media of individuals who, whether they be alive now and talking about the difficulties they're experiencing, or whether they have passed away and their neuropathology had suggested any kind of diagnosis. So that's at more at the lower end of our scientific evidence. When we start to work up that pyramid, as you can see up there, when we have case control studies, and a control study means that you have other non-exposed people in this case to compare it to, and then when you've got cohort studies and then randomized controlled trials, which is not the expectation of this particular line of investigation. So we can't do randomized control studies because that would be exposing somebody to the concussions and head injuries that we're saying we want to limit that. So it's just not ethically possible or reasonable to do that. So we're not saying when we say let's look at this hierarchy that we should be up in the orange and whatever other colour that is, kind of light orange colour area. But we do need to conduct a lot more cohort studies and case control studies. And the large majority of the evidence at the moment is really at that lower end.
So what we're seeing on the news, we're in the purple.
Yeah, so some of them are in the purple. There are a lot of cross-sectional studies that are now coming out as well, which is in the blue section.
Is that dangerous to report like that?
It can be. I think it's really important that we do make everybody aware that there is research going on and that there are findings that are along this line. But again, what we've been talking about without actually saying the words, and you've mentioned a lot here, is causation. So correlation doesn't equal causation. So just because something occurs together doesn't mean that it necessarily is correlated. And the best anecdote or the anecdote to talk about is that increase in ice cream sales and shark attacks. So we say, there's an increase in shark attacks and there's an increase in ice cream sales. Therefore, ice cream sales lead to shark attacks. And there's a correlation there. But the causation for anybody that's thinking about this would be, it's hot weather. People buy ice cream in the hot weather. It's summertime. People go swimming in the summertime, and therefore there's an increase in shark attacks because there's more people in the water to potentially get attacked. So we need to think about all of the things, all of the mitigating, moderating, mediating factors that could potentially go into why we have an outcome that we have. And for example, this might be, if we're talking about CTE, there might be lots of other reasons why somebody is presenting while they're alive with these various signs and symptoms that have been purported to be associated with the CTE pathology.
Do you feel too, especially, and I know from the media side of things, there's a certain sexiness, and this is a terrible word for what we're talking about here, about these types of stories because they get lots of eyeballs, lots of people want to know about it because it's in the public eye, at the moment. So it's almost like get this story out there, and especially in a television news report, you've only got 1:30 to get your point across. So if you're going to get an expert on who, even if these so-called experts wanted to say the right thing, you're not going to get that whole 2-minute grab. You've got no time. So it gets condensed into this little package. So you're only going to get the sexiness of that grab, which 9 times out of 10, probably 10 times out of 10, doesn't resemble what the grab should be. Would that be a fair?
Yeah, I think so. And this is such a complex area that you can't give a explanation in a short, simple way. However, the side of the argument, if you want to call it that, to say concussion bad, concussion dementia, that's a very simple message, and it's easily digestible and easily understood, and it kind of makes sense. But then if we talk about what we've been talking about in terms of all the other factors that could potentially be going into it without saying that it's not concussion, because that could certainly be part of it as well, and almost certainly is part of it, then that's something that we really need to go into the weeds about and to really describe and discuss. But I know that journalists have a job to do and that they've got their own interests and their own careers that they're needing to work on, and they have pressures from editors and whoever else to create the content that does get eyeballs on it, as you say. So it's very easy to potentially be pushed towards one way of thinking and reporting because you know that that's going to get the attention that it needs.
And I think it's that, and also maybe on the flip side is that maybe they don't hang around long enough to actually find out or research enough to find out the full cause. They're only getting that little bit, and well, that's enough. Maybe if they actually did know that, they would skew the other way and get some more experts on that know what they're talking about. I mean, there was even one report where this person said that training should be halved. Contact training. I mean, what your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we need to consider that as an option, but whether it's halved or whether it's reduced in
or maybe
time,
refine to being better tackling practices.
Yeah. I think that's a really good avenue for potentially reducing the load or the head loading, if you want to call it that goes into training prior to going into a game and match play. But we also need to conduct research and really make an informed decision around that. And I know that there are a number of sports that are doing that, and we're currently collaborating with some people at Leeds Beckett University, Professor Ben Jones and his team, having a look at what that might look like in terms of head loading and how training exposure and match play exposure can be reduced.
I know you probably don't want to answer this, and you don't have to answer this, but this is my opinion on what I'm seeing here is that I think that the fact that you do work closely with the NRL, the AFL, the rugby union, and it's in the eye of the storm, all this, they're making out to look as though you're watering down things because they think you're on some type of payroll with these sports. I mean, how much money have you ever received from the NRL?
None personally, but in terms of our research, we've been supported, but nothing personal.
So to me, it's like you're not making money out of that. The money that's coming from the NRL and the AFL is purely for research, but it seems like they feel like you're part of the staff, which you're not, to water down some of these instances, which is totally incorrect.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough subject to kind of touch on, and
I appreciate
it's something that I probably don't really want to make too many comments on. But ultimately, I really just want to serve the communities that I am trying to help, and gaining knowledge through research is really the way that I feel like I can do that. And so policymakers can make evidence-informed decisions about what they want to do. And when there are claims about certain things that are made, they can have evidence to say, well, hang on a second, you're saying this, but our evidence that has been collected in a very thorough and scientific manner is suggesting otherwise.
Yeah. I just think, personally, in all sort of trades, all walks of life when it comes to work, I've always had this philosophy, you don't shit on your own. And I sort of feel, it's almost like these other so-called experts, they know what you do and they know that you're researching. There's no need to go to do what they've done. And I think it's a disgrace, and we'll move on. Something more lighter now. Growing up in Taralba.
Yep.
How was that?
That was good. Yeah. I guess you don't know any different because that's where you just grow up. But yeah, no, it was it was good. It was good fun, and obviously I have had a great family environment growing up in, and one of the biggest things I think that my parents instilled in both myself and all of my brothers, including my identical twin brother, was that we had great ambitions, huge ambitions, and had lots of goals that we wanted to achieve, and most of it was around sport. And they never told us once that we wouldn't be able to achieve that. Even our pie in the sky thoughts of being the next War Twins was never told us that we weren't going to be doing that.
Well, one of you certainly thought that.
Yeah, that's Daniel. He's a very talented sports person.
Yeah, well, he is, isn't he? I've never heard anyone that's won a soccer grand final in his first year
Yep.
and a cricket premiership in his first year.
Yeah, that's right. So he, in his rookie season, playing for, it was Highfields Missouri back then, which is now Charlestown City. 2002, they won the NBN premiership.
Yep.
In the grand final, and then he was playing first. I forget if they called it grade or, but he was playing city and suburban cricket for a number of years with the Beaches Hotel, and then he had a few friends that played at Belmont, so they pulled him across to the district cricket. And in his first season at district cricket in Belmont, they went on and won the grand final as well. So in his rookie season in both football and cricket, he's won the title.
Can we go back to that last one with so he's looking like an Australian Test cricketer.
Yeah.
But then you grab another picture of an actual real former Australian Test cricketer. He's Simon Kadich.
Is he? There they go. Dog Scratch was his nickname. Simon Kadich. He's a good guy too.
But how I knew him was that I met Daniel a few years back, where he was the president of the Newcastle City AFL club.
Yep.
And he did a lot of work for raising money for motor neuron disease.
Yeah.
And he got me to, they had those water slides.
Big freeze, yeah.
The big freeze.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, man. Here we go. Just show what I had to look at the top of the slide. Look at that. And there's Nuatali, the mayor at the time, kicking me off. She actually took a lot of delight in doing that. You can see her face because I did a lot of shit stories on her. Let me tell you, my nuts are still in my guts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those shorts are a bit high.
Wait, but you know who I was? Who I was actually? This is a trivia question.
Dermot Brereton.
That's what most people think. But what strip have I got on there?
Is that a Cardiff City strip?
Cardiff Hawks.
Cardiff Hawks, yeah, sorry.
So I'm Isaac Heaney.
Very good. He's an absolute champion of a guy, Isaac.
Yeah, he is. He's still, he still takes his washing home up here and he gets his mum and dad, his mum to do his washing.
Surely not.
Yeah, I think they live out at Black Hill Way.
Yep.
But I think I raised 35,000, and we had a big ball that night. It was great, but he did so much work.
Yeah.
In organising the ball and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's such a great cause, and we just don't know enough about MND. And so, yeah, any money that can be raised to get other researchers to look into that is really, really important. And obviously, with a high-profile person leading that up and named Australian of the Year is just phenomenal. Great kind of exposure to the need and hopefully raising lots more money. As
I mentioned earlier before, there is links to MND to, brain injury.
Yeah.
So do you think that is in regards to, collision sports, that could be a link there?
Maybe. Initially, when the group that were collecting the most amount of brains were writing on this topic, they had talked about ALS, which is Lou Gehrig disease, known in the US. And Lou Gehrig's a famous Yankee first baseman who played the most consecutive games until Cal Ripken Jr. took over a long time ago, and he was known as the Iron Horse because he did not come out of the lineup. And his famous speech when he did come out of the lineup, saying that he's the luckiest person alive, but he was diagnosed with what we now refer to as ALS, a type of motor neuron disease, and the legacy is that it's known as Lou Gehrig disease in North America. So when the neuropathology of CTE was first described, there was a lot of cases that also had the ALS as well. So they were talking about a phenotype or a subtype of the CTE being motor-related signs as well.
So in regards to, say, Parkinson's, I mean, I suppose the highest profile one would have been Muhammad Ali, where he passed away, more reported as Parkinson's. But then you sort of people go, well, yeah, but geez, he took a lot of shots in his career. Is that another one that the same sort of thing?
Potentially, but the neuropathology of those two diseases are completely different. So if I get really technical with you, Parkinson's a synuclein focused or disease, whereas the CTE side of things, it's more of a phosphorylated tau type disease. So they are two different things from a neuropathological perspective.
Yeah. And just getting back to motor neuron, we had a former mayor, Jeff McCloy, who's just just passed away as well. And also, I think he played for Lakes United back in the day as well, and a life member there as well. So he did a lot for sport and a lot of stuff around the traps that Jeff McCloy did that the average person would have no idea. I remember there's a piece of marble, there's a sculpture in Foreshore Park, still there to this day. And I remember going down there, we did a story on the guy that was chiselling it. And we got it, sort of some vision of it coming off the boat from Greece, this big slab of marble, turned up. And I said to this guy, I said, here's, how do you get the money for this? How much is this worth? He said it'd be about $200,000 worth of marble.
Wow.
And I went, what happened? Jeff McCloy. But don't tell anyone. He doesn't want anyone to know. And I thought, wow, just things like that, just to try and beautify the area, And I don't think there'd be too many other mayors that would have, spent that much money on from their own kick. But your sport was a big part of your life too, like you, was it Lake Macquarie Soccer Club, the junior soccer club?
Yeah,
I think it was Craig Johnson.
Yep, absolutely. So he was the legend that played there, and all of the coaches and all of the committee members knew about it, and all of the kids, as a result of that, were taught about Craig and what he'd done. And we were, I don't know, maybe under 9s or under 10s when the Predator came out, and everybody wanted to get that boot. And so we knew very well of Craig and how successful he was, and what a champion he had been.
I suppose with sports psychology as well, his mindset way back then, had to be on point, and I think got better over time to the point where, and we can, I suppose, talk to a little bit about it in a minute in regards to your dealings with this, but to get over to England, get told that you're no good, and then still stay there, your brain must be going all over the shop in regards to how am I going to do this? And the only way he could do it was just fight his way out of it and just get better and better and better, and that's what he did. He's a classic example of someone that, someone puts their mind to something, they can actually achieve it.
Yeah, absolutely. The temperament's a huge thing, and also just your core beliefs in terms of never giving up, pushing every ounce of your ability to the greatest extent that you can, and just seeing how far it takes you. And obviously he was exceptionally good, and I listened to the chat that you had with him. It's just phenomenal to hear what went on and what his mindset was like. And then also, and I think this is possibly happens a lot, is that a lot of the people that make it through to that elite level have that ingrained work ethic that you need to make it to that elite level. And nothing came easy to him, and nothing comes easy to these guys. They're not necessarily the best at every single age group going through. They know there's other people that are better than them, but the hard work, which is the key to this. As I said, life's a strategy game, not a talent game.
But also too, it's the fact that he found a new life after football, which is again is so important, because again a lot of players, when they finish, it's almost like they feel like they're in no man's land, where his mind was just constantly ticking over. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that, which is something that, probably, I know it gets more encouraged now, and a lot the NRL, a lot of coaches put a lot of work into players, futures, but you've got to have your mind, your brain thinking all the time, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm possibly going to contradict myself a little bit here in terms of what I said a little earlier, and being almost one track focused. At times, that is, that's required, because in order for you to be able to achieve what you want to achieve, you need to be really focused on working towards that goal. But then having the balance of having other things to fall back on or other avenues to pursue is really, really important as well. And the athletic identity, which is what we're kind of talking about here, is really key for those that are transitioning out of being an elite level athlete in particular into the next phase of their life. And they can take all of the skills that they've learnt, like work ethic to become that elite level athlete and apply it to other areas of their life and to also exceed in those areas as
And
well.
I suppose you would see that as well for people that, that retire due to a head knock and retire early. They've got to be looking at what to do now. And also too, I wanted to bring up just the fact that, I mean, you love sport, but you've made work, you've made sport come together with your work. And it's almost like the best of both worlds, where a lot of people, I get a feeling you actually love what you do. And not everyone loves what they do, but you've actually done it. You've obviously psychology, sports science, all that sort of thing, all knocked together. It's just,
Yeah, it doesn't. I often don't feel like I'm working at all because it's just a passion and I just love it. And it's the only time I feel like I'm working is when I get bogged down in admin stuff.
Yeah.
But when I get the nuts and bolts of collecting data, analysing data, writing papers, reading the literature, learning what other people are saying and what they've done, it's just, I thrive on that and love it. So it's people call it work and it's just a hobby.
Do you ever get to walk on the SCG when you're doing stuff with the Swans?
No, I haven't yet. That's probably one of the only grounds that I haven't had an opportunity to have a look at.
I remember when we used to have to report the Swans, they used to say, we've got a press conference on the SCG, and we used to do it every week.
Yeah.
And just like blasé, like you turn up and a guy, a mate of mine ring me up and say, what are you doing at the moment? I'm standing waiting for Longmire to come out. Late as usual, I'm standing on the SCG, and he go, what? Hey, what? You're standing on the SCG. Can you grab me a bit of turf and bring it back? I'm going to plant it into my front yard. And I'm like, what? And then all of a sudden I realised it's a pretty privileged position. Like, but I'm taking this is just a normal day's work.
Yeah.
And I'm going, I've got to be somewhere else. And I'm standing on the SCG, which is hallowed turf.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's good. You do. Again, this is probably a mental performance thing that I teach as well, is present moment focus. And so if you're thinking about the past or thinking about the future, you're not really engaging in where you are in that environment at the moment. The only thing that you can control is the present moment. So you can get anxious about things that haven't even happened in the future because you're thinking about it, and you can get depressed about things that have happened in the past because you're ruminating on it. You don't have control over any of those things. All you can do is be in the present moment. And so enjoying where you are and experiences that you have and opportunities that you have, and just appreciating things it's like smelling the roses, isn't it? So it's really, really important.
That just jogged my brain into another one very similar to that. I went to the MCG, and we were doing some MCG tour with a few mates, and one of them did just that. He grabbed a bit of grass and put it in his pocket, And when no one knew what he was doing until we got to the airport, and we're sitting there, waiting to check in, and he's pulled this plastic satchel up with grass in it. He goes, "Oh, look what I got from the." Well, what's that? And he went, "It's from the MCG." I said, "Put it away. They might think it's marijuana." Like, it was just like, and then he realised, he went, "Yeah, it does, doesn't it?" And he didn't know where to put it. I said, "Swallow it, do something." I don't know. So then you move on to Wall's End, which is another one we mentioned Reg Dade, who used to be a legend at Wall's End, that was on the Craig Johnson podcast.
Yep.
Another incredible player. I was just going to say, these leather balls back in the day, you headed one of them.
Yeah, it's like a cannonball sometimes.
Yeah. So the funny thing about it is that back then, which was the 30s, 40s, players are heading those footballs, while in rugby league you had to tackle around the waist. There'd be more concussion from playing soccer than rugby league.
Yeah, potentially. You have a look at some of those pitches, even right up until the 90s in Europe, and they're just mud balls in that middle of winter when they can't grow the grass back. They're playing games on it, it's raining, and just week after week just abusing the turf. And then you've got that ball that picks up all of the mud, all of the water. Yeah. It's as heavy and hard as a cannonball.
Wasn't recently I mentioned? I think I spoke to you. You were going to do some research on the impact of heading a soccer ball. Did that come off? Or?
Yeah, no, we didn't get a chance to do that. So it would be interesting, but funny you mention it, because there's a publication that came out just last month, or a few. publications that came out just last month around that kind of research that we were interested in looking at. So, it would be it's an avenue that a lot of people are pursuing around the world, particularly European institutes that are really interested in that because football is their number one sport,
and especially at junior level as well, I suppose, when the brain's still growing.
Yeah, that's right. And again, on a topic that we talked about before, there are a lot of organisations that have legislated against heading in training and heading in the game until a certain age as well. So they're trying to reduce the exposure to that particular part of the game. And so we'll see as they investigate that further what that shows.
I mean, I suppose the balls these days are a lot lighter. They're more synthetic. But is it a case of every time your head, your head hits a ball, your brain does move inside?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so the brain doesn't know what kind of impact force it's receiving.
Yeah.
So it could be heading a soccer ball. It could be running around at school and coming around a blind corner and having a head clash with somebody. It could be playing a contact or collision sport, or it could be people that choose to do boxing and getting hit in the head with a punch. It's still an impulsive force that's going into the skull, and the brain inside that skull is going to move around inside.
So even say with snow skiing, so I mean they have helmets, state-of-the-art helmets, but at the end of the day, it's going to stop you from cracking your skull, but it's not going to stop your brain from moving inside.
That's right. So the helmets that are used for various sports like that, and also if you think about motorbike riders on the road and cyclists, and then also the soft headgear that can be worn in contact and collision sports, we do know that it reduces the risk for a skull fracture, and it can, in some sports, also reduce the risk of what we refer to as cauliflower ear, and can help with cuts and abrasions, but it doesn't attenuate all of the forces. So the force is still going to go through the helmet into the skull, and then the brain inside the skull will be moving around and reverberating in there.
Now, one thing that you told me leading up to today, which blew me away, you were in the Australian lawn bowls side.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Yeah.
How did that happen?
Well, my grandfather was a great bowler here locally, and so it was a sport that we watched him play some games and were interested in, but it was never a young person gets involved. And then I think it was in Year 7 we were at Glendale High School, and one of the sports was so we had sport on Thursday afternoons. Was it Thursday? Yeah, Thursday, Friday, Thursday. And one of the sports that you could choose was lawn bowls, and it was only 50 cents to participate in that sport, and a lot of the other sports were $5 plus. So there was a bunch of us that
did lawn bowls get the girls?
No. Did not. I probably wasn't interested in girls at that stage anyway. But so it ended up being a bunch of us who they lived locally around the Edgeworth Bowling Club, and so what they got was a 50-cent sport, and also they got to go home earlier. So we went down there and started playing, and
perfect logic.
Yeah, one of my really good friends, David Govan, who is still playing exceptionally well, and I ended up playing together a lot, and we ended up doing quite well. And
so you're in the squad in 2008, 2009. You're in a squad of 20 out of this team, but unfortunately only 5 can get picked.
Yeah, so at tournaments it's usually only 5 that get selected, and I was nowhere near the top 5. So even though I was in the squad, it was a privilege to be there as opposed to.
But you know, there's actually guys can make a considerable amount of money playing lawn bowls. Now, there's a guy on the Central Coast. His name is Aaron Sheriff.
Correct. Yes.
And I think he's even still in the national lawn bowling side. But I did a story on him. This would have been early 2011, and I turned up to the club, and it was strange. It was like, "Can you be there at 9 o'clock?" Yeah, I'm always here. I'm like, "What?" So I got there and I pulled him aside. I said, "So you work for the bowling club?" He said, "Yeah, they give me $500 a week retainer." He said, "But," he said, "I can go to it. There's always a lawn bowls tournament somewhere in the state every week."
Yep.
So I go there, put on their shirt, represent them. Because I'm in the top 2 or 3 bowlers in Australia, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to win the singles, $2,000. Then I'd grab the second best bowler to do the doubles. That'd be $1,000, split it in half, another 500. And then triples, quads. He said, some weeks I can walk away with $4 or $5 grand playing lawn bowls. Yeah. And I went, and how old are you? He said, 27. I said, you're living the dream. He goes, and you know what? The best thing about it, you go to all these bowling clubs and they all know who you are. Like I walk in, I'm like a friggin' rock star. So all these guys buying me beers. I've never had to buy a lunch. He said, there's no outgoings and expenses. He goes, it's just great, you know?
Yeah, he is still a phenomenal player and one of the best in the world. So you're speaking to an absolute legend there. And he just last month, I think it was, won the Australian Open again, and he's won it the most amount of times. I think it's around 8 times now, which is just phenomenal. And he's a really, really top guy. I've had the opportunity to play against him, never played with him on a number of occasions, and he's been elite for a very, very long time. Yeah.
And that's the thing too. Even like local, I know there's bowling clubs even here in Newcastle which they play in the pennants. I don't think they make much money out of winning a pennant, but it's the prestige of winning a pennant. So I think because I think Aaron may be based in Queensland now on the Gold Coast. He plays for a club up there.
Broadbeach, yeah.
Raymond Terrace fly him down for the weekend to bowl for him. Back on a plane Saturday night, back up.
Yeah. There's a number of players that do that now. So there's a number of state-based Premier League and pennant competitions. In New South Wales we call it the Platinum Pennant now, and a number of players are bouncing around the country playing in all of those tournaments and making a living off being a bowler.
You might come back into it.
Oh no, too old now. Past it.
Too old.
I still love it, but it's not my passion. And to be like they are, you need to be working at your game a lot. And as much as I'd love to, I still dabble sometimes, but as much as I'd like to, if I went into something, I'd want to be as best as I could. And I just don't have the time to get on the green and train like what those guys do. And they deserve everything that they get because they work so hard at their game.
One thing you do love, you love your baseball. Yep. You're still involved with the Belmont Baseball Club.
Yep.
The whole family is really, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a great family club, and our whole family's heavily involved. And it's really, really great club. Enjoy everything. We've had a number of people that have gone through the club that have been extremely successful as well. And the club is on a phenomenal record of consecutive first grade grand final appearances.
Do you play?
No, I don't. But I'm on the committee and I do a bunch of scoring for a bunch of teams and just try and help out around the club as much as I can. Yeah,
it's a wonder Daniel hasn't picked up a premiership out there playing baseball. He's just
he probably could if he picked up a bat. Yeah,
but that is a mental sport, isn't it? And you're helping a few people, in baseball terms, pitches. Is that a real mental thing that you can get the yips, I suppose, doing that?
Yeah, that's right. So I think mental performance training and coaching is available for any area of life and can be applied to any area of life. And I guess I'm just fortunate that I have hung around sport long enough that there's a number of people that know what I do and have reached out to try and work on their mental side of the game. So I've worked with lawn bowlers because that's the sport that I probably achieved the best in personally and understand. But then we talk about pitchers, also hitters, and I also work with a golfer who's just a phenomenal prodigy. I started working with him when he was 12, and he's just turned 14 now. And
that is a real mental game, isn't it? Though?
Absolutely, yeah. So one of the biggest things that I start off with a lot of people when I do give talks around mental performance training is understanding how much of the sport that they're participating in and want to do well in is mental side of the game. So my first question will be how much is your sport? So we'll just use baseball as an example. How much baseball do you think is mental versus physical? And I'll start at 60%, and some people put their hand up, and then you gradually get up to like 90%, and most of the people have put their hand up. And I was like, okay, well, if I have a look at your training calendar, how much mental training are you doing compared to physical training? And nearly everyone's doing 100% physical training, but no mental training. And I say, well, if your sport's 90% mental, in your opinion, or 80% mental, and you're doing no mental performance training, how are you supposed to reach your elite level? And
how do you coach that though?
In terms of mental performance training, well, it's just it's teaching certain keys around, like what we talked about before, being present moment focused, controlling what you can control, having an approach and a game plan, preparing well, setting goals and working towards goals. Being one of the biggest things is being process focused, not outcome focused. So as soon as you start thinking about the outcome, you start to get those anxiety things coming up, butterflies in the stomach, sweaty hands, sweaty palms. You start thinking about outcome. That's something that you can't control. All you control is the next thing that you do. So if you're a golfer, for example, and you just shoot a bogey, it's the ability to wash that away and go, okay, move on to the next. The only thing I can control is my next tee shot. And so it's the ability to say, well, I dropped a shot on that hole because I 3-putted when I shouldn't have. Now I don't need to go chasing to get that back. All I need to do is just execute my next shot. So it's about present moment focus.
And I suppose team sports is obviously different than individual. Obviously individual, you live and die by the sword from what you're doing. But I suppose in team sports, especially maybe rugby league, you have a bad game, your bloke next to you has a great game. It sort of makes up for it.
Yeah.
Where individually, you really got to bring it every time. But I suppose with pitching as well, in baseball, you are a main cog in that team, which is a different type of team sport for this individual.
Yeah, the role of pitcher is the person that controls the game. So although you're working with your catcher and calling the game of what pitch you're going to throw next, you're the one with the object that the opposition are trying to put into the outfield or out of the stadium. And so you control what happens next. The hitter doesn't control it. So when you're a hitter and you're in the box, you need to have a mindset of, okay, I'm anticipating that this pitcher is going to throw a fastball here and I'm going to drive it wherever you're looking to hit it. But they need to some extent react. But when they're pitching so fast, react is not really the right term to use.
And you're doing a bit of work with someone else in this field, is it?
Yeah. So I have an opportunity to be mentored, but also to speak with a lot. It's Professor Rob Gilbert, and he has a success hotline, which is just amazing. He has been putting on a 3 to 4 minute message on his phone line.
Yep.
Since the 22nd of January 2000. Oh, sorry, not even 2000. I tell a lie. It's 1992.
Wow.
So he's been going for multiple years, every single day, dropping an inspirational and important message on his hotline for that long. And I've had an opportunity to publish a paper with him, but also to just call him up and have chats and things. And it's just, he's a phenomenal guy, has had an amazing life, and the way he's shared the things that he's learnt over time is phenomenal, second to none in terms of education and an educator. And he, although he is an academic and a professor, he refers to himself as a coach, and that's what he likes. And and his method of teaching is through stories, because people remember stories.
Yeah.
So although I've dropped some lines here today, like success leaves clues and life's a strategy game, not a talent game, he has stories that teach people how to remember that, and then the punchline comes. So it's just,
I suppose the more people you meet in life, I suppose you learn from people, don't you? And he's just one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things, because I was, I guess I was brought up on sport and I valued sport so much, and I had a twin brother, so you have a best friend that's around all the time, but you're always competing all the time. And one of the things that switched the switch in my life was that I went through for so long thinking everything's a competition and you just have to be the best at everything that you do.
Because it would have been with a twin, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was good though. It was healthy. But when you start to go, okay, well, not everything's a competition. I don't have to choose to be as fast as I can at getting this completed or doing that and the other, and you actually work on quality and being present moment focused. It just kind of changes things phenomenally.
Did your mum dress you in the same clothes?
No, that was fortunate. I don't think anyone would have been able to tell us apart if she did. We had similar clothing, but we had different colours, so it was like, okay. Yes.
One had a Carlton jumper, one had a Swans jumper.
Yeah, right.
And just finally, look, you've done so many things. You did a trail running through COVID.
Yeah.
And then you did 100 kilometres event in 15 hours.
Yep.
Like you're like Forrest Gump. You could just do. I want to do this. I'm going to run across America, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to be ping pong champion. What?
Yeah.
How did this come about?
Well, during COVID, we obviously were in lockdown and weren't able to do as much work in terms of data collection. So I was working with the data that I had to continue to do things. The hospitals were shut down, so clinically I wasn't seeing anybody either. And so I just decided that I'd get stuck into running in the trails because you had to remain isolated. And living in Lake Macquarie, as you know, is probably the best council to live in with these restrictions because we just have such beautiful lifestyle and opportunities, and you can drive from one side of Lake Macquarie to the other, and it takes 45 minutes to get from one section to the other.
That's
so
right.
Living in Lake Macquarie and having the restrictions of staying within your local district or your local council was not a problem at all, really, from that perspective. And so there wasn't a lot of people out in the bush, so I just went running out in the bush and ended up joining forces with Run Lab and Vlad Chatroff and Ben Kubra, and just joining that phenomenal community. And Vlad and Ben are both elite level trail runners, and learning from them and training hard and just working hard to try and run in the Ultra Trails Australia event in the Blue Mountains. And I picked up an injury during the run and was going to push. And I thought better not. So I ended up pulling out around, I think it was 56 kilometres or something. And I thought, okay, well, just got to rehab this and then go in another event. And I woke up the next day and I felt absolutely fine. I was like, wow, this is not good. I've pulled out and I should have done it. So I got together with Ben and Vlad and the Run Lab team and we went out on the Great North Walk. So we started in Taralba, right near where I lived, and ran all the way down to Yarramalong with various people from Run Lab. They jumped in and ran a few kilometres with me, 30-ish at a time, and got it done in 15 hours-ish. And it was good.
Do you still run?
Day. I do, but not anywhere near as much as what I had back then because I'm just so busy and enjoy working.
I was going to say, I thought you need an outlet. I thought running would be the best one to get away from it all.
Yeah, no, it is good fun, and I certainly still go out and run when I can, but it's not quite as frequently as what it was back when COVID had restricted a lot of things.
I'll let you go, Andrew. You've had one quite incredible life so far, and it just keeps on going, and I wish you every success in the future.
Well, I appreciate you hanging out with me, and it was a great conversation. It's always good to catch up, so thanks for having me on.
Not a problem, mate.